Corner in the house on Rock 95.5. Michael and Bruce, thank you so much for hanging today.
It's a pleasure, Maria.
Okay, so you guys might not know this, but every Thursday on Rock, we do Thirstday. And since you guys are doing your show next Thursday at Navigator Tap Room, that means you got to come into the Thirstday Club and answer the Thirstday question, which is, what is your first ever alcoholic beverage? Bruce, I'm going to start with you. I want to know the beverage and the story, and just say your age. It's okay. We can be illegal.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm over 21 for sure. My first one I tasted, I remember, was a beer, and it was probably, I don't know, however old, at my parents' house, and there were cigarettes and beers laying around after some party they had. And it was repulsive, I'm sad to say. But the first time that I ever was inebriated was, I was probably 14. I remember somebody got a hold of a bottle of whiskey, and it seemed like a good idea to drink like half of it. And I remember, it came within about 45 minutes, it was coming back up. And I remember I was giggling on my buddy's front lawn in Southern California. And I remember I remember laughing while I was returning the whiskey to the earth. So, I mean, unfortunately or fortunately, it was a very positive experience that first time. Vomiting.
That's badass. To laugh while you're vomiting, like 14-year-old was a savage already.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's true.
And Michael, what about you?
Well, yeah, of course, like Bruce, I mean, well, my dad always had, all the usual suspect crappy American beers around: Schlitz, Rolling Rock, Lowenbrow, all that stuff. And, and I'd always say, Dad, sip, can I get a sip? Be like, oh yeah, sure. He'd always give me a couple sips. And I have to say, even, that obviously that's not great beer or anything, but I always liked the taste of it right from the beginning. It was just like, yeah, I've got a future in this.
Some people would call that a red flag.
Yeah, well, perhaps it was. I choose not to look at it that way.
Perspective.
Yeah.
But also, though, similar to Bruce, though, so those were just sips. Those weren't inebriation. But, so it would have been, oh God, I think even earlier than Bruce. He said he was 14. I think this was like 12 maybe. And a bunch of friends, we went to the schoolyard, the grammar school we were going to at the time, and we were just hanging out there in the yard at night on a weekend. And one of the kids went to his parents were out, and he raided the liquor cabinet. He thought it was a great idea to mix all the booze together,
jungle juice,
into one bottle. He's like, oh, I got all kinds of stuff. I got a little of everything. This is great, So like he threw in like whiskey and like gin or whatever liqueurs and everything all into one bottle. We were like, oh, this is great. So yeah, lots of puking.
I was about to ask, did that come back? Were you laughing while you were puking?
You know what? I have to say, I wasn't laughing. It was but because I think maybe had it just been one thing, had it just been whiskey or one, but in this case, this was a painful, ill-advised mix of things. So, but hey, trial by fire. I learnred that's not how you do it.
It's like an amateur Long Island. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Bruce, I got a question for you, man. So if I've done my research right, and correct me if I'm wrong on the timeline of this. So you're already out there, you're playing with the likes of B.B. King, with Elton John, with like some like badass rock stars. And then you go back and get your undergrad in business administration. Is that like the correct order here? Okay.
Quite the reverse. The reverse.
I was very confused. I'm like, what? Like, why? Why would you start as a rock star and then be like, but just in case?
Yeah. It's although some guys do that. I know Duff McKagan of Guns N' Roses, like, he went back and got very business savvy, but that was not my progression. I definitely was a young man. I was going to college and I was playing music all the time, but I wasn't yet connecting anything that was making me feel like I shouldn't follow my parents' vision. They were like, go to school, finish school, and so I did. Then I got a degree by the skin of my teeth, because at that point I was just like not into it, but I somehow pulled that off.
Genuinely, how though? Because I don't know how you would have the motivation to.
No, it was, like I said, skin of my teeth. I mean, I remember just making grades, just plumb, on a trajectory, downward trajectory the whole time because my interest was waning daily. But yeah, I mean that happens. Yeah, I got
D's get degrees.
Yeah, oh, boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what was it like being able to perform, I guess, at that level at such a young age? I mean, obviously your normal is your normal. So when did it hit you that like, maybe this isn't normal? Maybe I'm like out here killing it.
No, I mean, it was not like that. Actually, it was, I mean, it was a really, as clear as my downward trajectory was with my grades, it was like a very slow, shallow climb up to start making money and have a career in music. So I thought I was going to be an artist. I was writing songs and, playing in band, and I was that guy. And it didn't read music or anything, but it was a very slow slog up to try to make money and, finally quit your part-time day job. And so, yeah, and it actually, it happened in the early 90s, really, for me, when grunge came in and the whole sound of what people wanted to hear was different. You didn't have to be a brilliant musician to sound contemporary. And so I started doing sessions back then, recording sessions in LA. You didn't have to read anymore. They just wanted you to sound like, grungy. And so I fell into that. And that sort of I started working with a lot of really great players in LA. And yeah, so then it finally got real, but it was a long road to that.
What were your part-time jobs?
Oh, well, the worst by far. I lasted 6 months as a bank teller. Oh, it was just torture. Standing at a window, it's like you're in a cage and people just keep coming at you with math. And I suck at math. And they're just like, you crunch numbers coming at you. It was just absolutely horrible. The worst ever.
Yeah, you're not giving me bank teller vibes. I'm not exactly.
No, not a good fit. Not a good fit at all. Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Michael, what's your journey? Because you got in the game pretty successfully pretty early as well. So what was that journey like for you? Because you played with Boss Skaggs, Enrique Iglesias. You're really all over there on the genre map. So
yeah, well, I mean, I think you just kind of you sort of hit the nail on the head there with the being all over the place genre wise. I mean, I guess I've suffered from musical ADD in a certain way. I've just, if you look at my paths with music, I mean, the only unifying thing is that it's been music, right? I mean, but because I feel like otherwise, I mean, from starting, I played classical music as a kid, so I was classically trained and learned to read and all that stuff. And I kind of took to that, and that just for my process, that worked for me to learn that way. And then, of course, into like, but pop music and rock was always there in the backdrop. It was the 70s and, classic rock. So, I always loved rock too. And I always had, Who albums and Zeppelin albums, but I loved the soft rock stuff, Paul Simon and Cat Stevens and, people like that. But yeah, so it was classical piano, then it was bands in high school. And then I would go to college and I got the jazz bug. I to this day love jazz piano and even guitar too. I'm working on that as well. But so I've kind of, if it sounds really all over the place, it is, it's sort of like, but it's just good, I guess just music that spoke to me. I've never been, I've gone through periods of genres where I've been very focused, but then, sort of pop music always kind of brings me back in. And certainly Foreigner is, in a way, when I look at that, it's kind of like coming home to that, the stuff that I grew up on, the soundtrack of my childhood and, the late 70s when Foreigner broke. I mean, that was like a very influential time just as a listener, just as a kid, the way music imprints you at that time, where it imprints itself on you and, sticks with you. So it's sort of like full circle to come to Foreigner. But yeah, like you mentioned, Boss Skaggs, Enrique Iglesias, a little bit with Stevie Nicks, just up and then, kind of putting out my own jazz records and doing a singer-songwriter thing too as well. So yeah, it's kind of all over the place, but at least it's all music, so
sure.
I guess that holds it together,
And as a professional keyboardist, pianist, would you say that you have ring fingers of steel? Do you have the strongest ring fingers of every person that you've ever met?
Yeah, well, my right hand for sure. I'm pretty right hand dominant.
Look at the size of those things.
Look at my God.
Look at the size of those hands, man.
Yeah.
1 and 2 and 1 and 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Piano player, I feel it.
The piano player hands. Yeah, it's true. It's definitely. I guess for certain things, certain stretches, it helps, you know.
Sure.
But man, I see lots of guys with little hands getting it done too. They're actually, I feel like the guys with littler hands, sometimes they have the speed thing that I'm like, wow, look at that thing go. It's like a little hummingbird, you know.
Good for them, man. I did piano. Like my parents got me in that when I was 2 years old to when I was 16, but I got tiny hands. I can't even reach an octave. So I was like, no, I'm out. Like kudos to the men that can be like real
Yeah.
fast because it ain't here. It ain't your girl. I don't got your talent. A question that I have for both of you as obviously professional musicians, and we're in this weird time, I feel, musically, where social media is starting to really dictate the music that gets put out. Do you have any comment on that, or any changes that you've seen in the industry where it's like labels are now starting to want songs that are made specifically for TikTok, or anything that you guys have struggled with on that note? Because I know Foreigner has some new music perhaps on the horizon.
Yeah. Do you, maybe I'll just jump in. Yeah. I mean, we've talked, you know, we've talked about this a lot, and, you know, for better or for worse, obviously the social media thing is front and center. It's here to stay for now. And, it is interesting because you mentioned TikTok and Instagram stories and things. It's all predicated on condensed, a condensed form. You know, what is the Instagram story is what, a maximum of 14 seconds, I guess, something like
Something
that.
like that.
And then there's the reels. Of course, you can do reels now, I guess, which are longer. But it's, I mean, it definitely feeds into a shorter attention span, quicker, right? I mean, it's sort of like you've got it, you know, in TikTok. What is TikTok even? I'm actually not on TikTok, but I know it's a shorter.
Good for you, but also it's only a matter of time. So apologies in advance.
Yeah. So I mean, the whole idea of the arc of a song, I mean, you know, 2.5, 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. Of course, I do think that's still relevant, and people still have successful songs that are that length. But it's just really interesting that it's a 10 to 15 second thing, which is sort of the thing that can go viral or become make or break, you know, break people, make somebody really famous based on these little clips. It's yeah, it's a different time as far as that goes. And but you know, I mean, we obviously have Foreigner has an Instagram page, and we, you know, have to we play that game and do that stuff too, and get our content out there. And that's just that's part of the landscape. But anyway, Bruce, if you want to, maybe you want to chime in a little too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have any wisdom or insights into like the comparison of the music business to then or now, or the music business now for sure. But there, you know, to not be too discouraged by it, if you look back in the late 50s and 60s, pop music, country, which was really super popular, like under 3 minute songs was what was happening. Singles, you know, there weren't albums. You bought a single and you got another song on the other side. And so as far as attention spans, there was very little TV back then, very little few distractions, but there were like short little formats of how you present yourself. And then of course, with the LP was also the long playing record. So maybe we're in the cycle of shorter attention spans. And so that's the looking away from the doom and gloom, but it's kind of, the waters are just so overpopulated. I don't know. I mean, there's like just, you can, I mean, at least with things like Spotify, where they can channel you towards music that you tend to listen to. I mean, that's kind of a good thing, you know, to turn you on to things you might like. But I think it was very daunting back then to have to navigate the politics of getting to a record label to have them hear your stuff, and then you know, to get them to actually respond. I mean, that was really, it was a very small target you were trying to hit. Now the target is just so vast that it's equally daunting. But they both have their challenges, and they both seemed insurmountable. But the bottom line is, we always talk about is you better just love it, because I know that Michael, you know, and I would have, whatever I was doing, if I was still a bank teller, I would be practicing guitar every night. I'd be trying to write a song. I mean, it would just, that seed was planted and you're done, you know?
Yeah. It's hard to, and you may take breaks from it and think that you're, you know, actually our latest member of the band, Luis Maldonado, who's been with us a little over a year now. I mean, he actually, you know, he's a really successful guy and a brilliant guy, and he quit music a couple times. He got out of music and did other things, but there's this thing, you just, when it's in you to that level, you can't you can't get away from it. It's going to pull you back in, and it did for him. It's done that for all of us. You know, I mean, I've taken breaks at times in life too, and it's just always, it's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Artists got to create art. It's
Yeah.
just in there. It's in the
Yeah.
DNA. So tell me about this performance that you guys have coming up at the Navigator Tap Room next Thursday. It's going to be small and intimate, right?
It'll be small, but hopefully, yeah, it'll be intimate. Hopefully, be packed and sweaty, and
Yeah.
it's fun. It's at
We're
the
all going to
Navigator
be
Tap Room.
vaccinated
Yeah.
before we're packed and sweaty.
Yeah, come on, yeah. But yeah, so the Navigator Tap Room in Logan Square in Chicago. It's on Thursday the 18th, like you mentioned, and we are touring most of this next few weeks with Kid Rock. Nice. And that's a crazy fun bill. And so the night after we play on the 18th, we're playing at Tinley Park with Kid Rock on the 19th. So there's good fusion of a good time there. Yeah, I mean, Michael, tell about what you think happens at a VIB.
Yeah, it's a really fun thing for us. I mean, you know, you mentioned intimate, and that's, you know, we do tend to play bigger shows, so it's a you know, it's obviously not the full band. It's Bruce and I and Luis, and you know, a scaled down thing. It's more acoustic, and you know, people are right there, and it's in a kind of fun, beer soaked environment, you know. And I guess this place has 50 taps, I think I read. Right. And you can do you know the place, Maria?
I haven't been to it, but I'm aware of it, and it looks amazing. You guys are gonna have a blast.
Yeah. So we do. It's kind of a mixture of playing tunes and, you know, sort of like, we also, since Bruce and I are big beer lovers and really into the process of it and brewing and everything, so often we'll get a chance to go back and check out the taps and the brewing process and get back there and talk to the head brewer. And I guess Chris, our Bruce's guitar tech, Chris Leprage, the guy who sets this up, who's really been booking a lot of these things for us. It's a touring buddy of his that worked for Clare Brothers. That's one of the partners there. So it's a kind of music industry kind of backed place. This guy was so he was a tech as well. I worked with Green Day and TSO. This guy, this friend of Chris's, that's a partner at this place at Navigator. So kind of, you know, get some industry people involved behind the scenes. And so that part of it's kind of cool. And so we play tunes, we do songs, we taste a lot of the different beers and interact with the fans and hang out. And it's just kind of a fun, you know, we end up with these off nights and we feel like what a great thing to do on an off night when we don't have a show, you know.
Yeah, we'd rather play than sit around, you know, but always.
That's like really saying something too. And that really speaks, I think, to the artists that you are, like we were talking about, like you got, like performers need to perform. I mean, you would think from the outside looking in, you got to get sick of shows at some point. It's your job. You're doing it all the time. Right. But no, you guys are like, oh man, we don't have a show today. What are we going to do? Show? You guys want to do a show? Let's do a show.
But also, but there's variety. It's different though, because it's cool. Like we were saying, you know, it's upfront and personal, and so it's a chance to do something a little different, you know. So we love that too.
And as we've been doing these over the last couple of years, we've developed this entity, that our VIB, very important beer experience. We're sort of responded to what the fans who come to these things want. And initially, Michael and I are certified beer servers, which is a level of accreditation where you actually have some beer knowledge. We can actually speak to brewers, and they, with a monocle. Yeah. They, you know, we can actually speak, not as experts, but intelligently about beer. So, totally. And so initially we just wanted to go to these places and talk about beer with people and try to get people to come in and have to talk about beer. And people want to do that, but it turns out actually they want to hear foreign, and they want to talk about foreigners. So we said, well, maybe we better start playing a couple songs, and then start playing more songs. So we've developed it more as an acoustic musical performance with, you know, chit-chatting, and you know, we're looking into like more question and answer kind of things, because that's what people want. So as people come down, we'll respond to what they want in that evening. And as we develop our VIB, like we're looking to, of course, play. We want to play now. That's the most fun part. But we want to respond to what people want. We have signed items that we'll give away, raffle away. Chris, our our booking guy will take care of that. So it's an all around fun thing. And also this place I want to mention has cocktails. If you're not like a beer person, they have cocktails, and if you're not like a hardcore beer person, they've got Schlitz on tap.
Yeah.
Oh,
It follows you.
That was my jam when I was a young lad. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but yeah, anyway, they've got Schlitz on tap. So what are you gonna say? Come on down.
My question now is, what do you drink these days? What's your go-to now?
Yeah.
Well, we've traveled the world, and recently we were in Germany, and Bruce and I both agree that like a really well brewed, fresh German style Pilsner can be an amazing experience, and you get them over there. I mean, obviously they have such a rich tradition of brewing in Germany, and they do those really well. We do find it can be harder to find in the States. I mean, obviously the IPA craze, the craft beer IPAs, are still a really big thing, and those are kind of fun too, and they're big. You got to be careful with them because the alcohol content's up there. Those big fruity IPAs and hazy IPAs and doubles, triples, everyone's doing those, and those are kind of easier to brew. We find people like throw a bunch of hops in there and like get this big flavor, and but like a really good Pilsner, it's harder to do. And so, but when we can find those, that's always amazing. But
I wish we, like you said, they're hard to find. I wish we could get that into the hands of more people who drink Bud Light, because that would be a no-brainer. I think they would understand that there's another level of light, but the quality and the depth of the experience is so much better than just a plain light beer. But I think that could be an introductory beer, if it's well made, could pull anybody towards more craft beers. But it's hard to find a good Pilsner.
Obviously, it's time for you to put that business administration degree into good use.
There you go.
Get some breweries in the US going that make beers like in Germany, so you can educate us.
That requires brain power, and I've since given up, trying to employ any type of, brain activity other than, play music, have a beer, chat with people.
Right. Yeah. No brain power except for all the musical genius. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, you're right. Well, this is awesome. I'm so excited to see your guys' performance next week. Is there anything else you want to let the people know?
Well, it's 7 o'clock, gentlemen by the name Cage Willis will be starting.
That's right.
But there'll be it's an evening of music, so it just come down. They start 7, and we'll also be doing these across the country. So if you could follow us, and we'll notify you when we're in your city. We're doing a VIB, and when foreigners come into your town, we'd love to see you.
Hell yeah! Well, thank you guys so much for hanging today.
Absolutely, it's been great to be here, Maria.
Appreciate it. Salud.
Thank you so much.